Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about something interesting. Now, what I'm going to talk about today is about a Spring Boot application. So I'm going to show you a Spring Boot application and I'm going to show you how you actually go ahead and containerize it. Rather, there are two ways of doing it. One is from a Docker file, if you use a Docker file to do it, or there is another way called as Maven Google GIB plugin. So this is a plugin given to us by Google, which can help us um, create an image during the Maven build itself. So you don't have to necessarily keep a Docker file under your root folder, and which is actually de facto the most popular way of doing or most popular way of containerizing your application. Then I'm going to show you how you actually go ahead and push the image which you got generated in this process into the Docker Hub registry. And lastly, I'm going to show how you do the same thing, all of the thing which you have seen earlier into an full-fledged working CI Jenkins pipeline. And we can also see if I could go ahead and add some stages there, because if you know, CI pipeline has different stages. And since I'm talking about stages, it makes sense to show you this diagram which I've created recently, which gives a small glimpse of how a typical CI pipeline really looks like. And here I'm not really talking about CD at all. I'm only talking about CI. CI actually, after CI, the CD happens and it's always in continuation, but I'm logically trying to break it to make things simpler to explain in a more simplistic manner. So from CI, CD starts, but as I said, CI is something which we need to learn first before we move on to CD. Now in CI, you have different stages. You have source code. Of course, you have to have the source code. Then the source code has to trigger the build. Once build is triggered, then unit test execution happens, then integration test execution happens. These are all phases, typical phases, logical phases, I would say, for any CI pipeline. Then you got to have Sonar static code analysis. Sometimes this could happen even before the unit test gets executed. Um, then you have vulnerability scan. Then you have, once the scan is over, you have this image being created and then pushed inside the registry. Now, this is, as I said, is a typical flow of stages, different phases a pipeline should go through. What I don't have at this moment is my unit test. I do have integration tests, but I have kind of currently disabled it for the sake of this talk. I'll try my best to add a Sonar static code analysis as well. This requires a new project creation. Let's see how much we can do today. But my focus is today to show you what source code looks like and the image creation and then pushing it to the registry. So I am going to focus on these three stages. The first one, the build trigger, of course. This is when everything starts moving in your CI, and then I'll immediately jump to create images. How it's going to create the images, and then how the images are being pushed to the Docker Hub registry or whatever registry you wish to use. But I am currently will be using the Docker Hub, which is actually kind of free for me. All right, let's get started. I'll open my IntelliJ. This is my rep. This is my very simple uh, REST API, a Spring Boot REST API, and this is my controller. My controller, I have two endpoints rather. So one is for post mapping, second is for get mapping. I can show you the behavior of my app. So this is how I capture the behavior of my application. I'm using Cucumber, a BDD fashion. So I wrote the behavior first, and then while I write it, then I try to run it. And when I ran it failed, then I implemented the endpoints, and this is how I have done it. So behavior-driven development as well as test-driven development. I have tried to give you a small glimpse of how they both can complement each other. Um it's not exactly can be called as TDD, neither can be called as BDD, but just to give a glimpse of how really this could really fit in when you actually go and try to create an API using a BDD approach or a TDD approach or both in together. Uh, so as I said, today's topic is not about really this. For this, I'm going to create another video later, how we can start writing scenarios and then start implementing the behavior in your APIs. It's for some another day. But for today, what I'm going to show you is this is my behavior. This is my simple API, which has two endpoints. One is to create an entity or create a product, and another is to get all the products out of it. Now, a typical structure of API where we have controllers, we have a model. This is my API looks like simple model. Then I have you can understand these are the columns. Then I have this repository. I'm using H2 database here. If you can notice, this is JPA repository. I'm using JPA library here and H2 embedded H2 database for storing my data, which I'm going to post. And from the same DB, I'm going to get the data as well when I hit a get endpoint there. So pretty simple stuff, nothing complicated here. In the application.yaml, I have these ports being set up, blah, blah, blah. Now let me quickly jump onto this phase where I want to go and containerize my application. So as I said, for containerization, you have two ways of doing it. One is if you can use Dockerfile, and second is you can use JIB plugins. I'll show you both ways. So first is you can use a Dockerfile. Now Dockerfile is a simple file without any syntax. If you see there's no syntax is attached to it, it's simple it's simply called Dockerfile. And this is a Go syntax because Docker is written in Go language, and the syntax also is just some simple commands which you can use. I'll just give a brief overview of what these commands are. So this command is actually the base image. So in Docker, there's a concept of base images, and on top of which you can use those images to really do something. So these are images when someone spins it up, when someone triggers them or initializes them, they become a full-fledged container. A container in its own right can be a simple virtual machine, a very simply minimalist virtual machine. So in this case, I'm only using something called as OpenJDK. That means this image, when it's going to be kicked off, it will be having only one thing, which is simple Linux kernel and JDK installed there. And really, in order to run my application, all I need is a simple JDK. My Spring Boot will just run fine there. I really don't need anything else in that specific container or machine. Next is I'm declaring a variable. I'm saying argument as jar file. Target is my folder from which I'm saying that whatever is there in target which ends with jar, place this inside this variable and then copy it to copy the content of that target, what gets generated in target, to the app.jar and rename it as app.jar. And then expose, because it's going to be creating a machine in its own right. This can be called as a machine in its own right, a Docker machine, or can be called as container. So I'm saying expose this port 9096 because if you see in my YAML file, this is the port I am also my Spring Boot Tomcat will actually listen to the new request on this port, and that's the reason I have tried to expose this as well. This is not a mandatory step, but I actually, for documentation sake, I put it here. Then entry point is what happens when because when you do this, it creates the image. Image doesn't run. Image is just an image. It is not executable. To make it a working container, make it working machine, you have to bring it up, and that's why we call that you have to spin up the container. That means from an image you spin up a container. So from an image you create a container, and once the container is created, it has to have a starting point, and this is something how you give it. So entry point is, you are saying when the container is brought up, you're supposed to be running a Java command and run this app.jar, which is nothing but my Spring Boot application. So when I build my Spring Boot application, it builds inside the target folder. It gives it a name like this, right? And this gets copied into the app.jar, and that app.jar is going to actually will execute itself executed when the container is spinned up. So that's basically the underlying idea of how a Docker file really functions. Now I'll go to terminal. First and foremost, what I need to do first is, of course, I need to build my jar first, isn't it? This is my Spring Boot application. I need to build it first. So let me just show you from the scratch. So I'll first do a Maven clean install. Sorry, just Maven clean. Okay, so this will delete my target folder from here, which I anyway want to refresh, and then I simply say Maven install. So when I do maven install, it will compile my whole code. Of course, it will run tests. Whatever test I would have, it will go and run them. By the way, I don't have any unit tests there. It will not run any unit test, and I don't have um, any integration test either. Um, okay, I had to disable something basically first. Okay, let it happen. I'll explain this behavior later. Okay, what I had to do was I was supposed to disable this, because as I said, there are two ways of Dockerizing application. One is via JIB and second was Dockerfile. I was demonstrating Dockerfile, but this was also enabled internally, and that's the reason it was spinning up the container by itself, and I didn't want it to do that. Let me just quickly disable this. This is now disabled, and now I'll do this same thing again. So I will again do a maven install. It will not change anything. It will do the same thing. It will compile, it will run the test, unit test, integration test, and all, and it will just generate this jar file for me, which is just fine. This is which is actually I wanted as well. But remember, this is not a CI pipeline, because everything is right now happening on my local machine. I don't want to do that. Eventually, I'm going to have a Jenkins pipeline, which will actually build my software. It will run my unit test, run my integration tests, run my Sonar, run my vulnerability checks, check the unit test coverage, check the code coverages, pass the quality gates, and then it will create the image, and then it will push to the repository, the GitHub, sorry, the Docker Hub repository. Now let me go here, and now I will do a simple command. So all I would do is, by the way, you need to remember a few of these Docker commands before you actually start with it. Like what are Docker images? Your concepts has to be, you have to understand the concept behind images and containers. So if I say Docker images, it gives me, oh, okay, when this happens, that means your Docker is not actually running. So you have to install your Docker desktop, and when you do that, a Docker daemon will start running. It's nothing but just a machine, a Linux machine which runs on top of your machine, on top of your actual laptop or whatever machine you're using. So now I have started a Docker engine, and that's the reason people have started using GIB plugin, because it doesn't require, this plugin doesn't require you to have Docker installed on the machine on which your code is running, which is exactly the reason why this is supposed to be used and not this. Because for this to work, if you're running this on a Docker machine or on a Jenkins agent, and that agent there's no Docker daemon, it will start failing. It will not generate the images. But for the understanding sake, it's always good to start the Docker thing from Dockerfile. Now let me go back again here. I will say Docker images, and it gives me all the images I have. I have pretty lot of images available here, but I don't need all of them. All I need right now is to build the image. Okay. Now for building an image, what you really need is a Docker file. As I said, you need to have a Docker file present there, and if you see, I am running my command, my Docker command. I'm going to run my Docker command inside this folder. That means if I'm running a Docker command inside this, a build command inside this, the Docker daemon will try to look for a file called as Dockerfile, and based on its content, it will try to containerize it. Okay, so now I will simply write the build command. I will simply say Docker build. Then I will have to tag it. So I will say I will say T, and I will say what name I can give. Let me see if I'm not giving wrong name, because I have already given one. Or never mind, I can just change its name as well. I'll say Yantra QA, and I will say Spring Ref App Demo 123, right? Because I'm giving this random name because I've already committed this in my Docker Hub, and to explain you the difference, I'm just giving them random name to this. Now this is my T. So T note indicates that's a tag. So I have to tag my images, and I can also say latest. This actually is my tag. this is my project and this is my name of the image. And end of it, I have to give something called as dot. Now this dot is very important. It's not a full stop. It's a dot. Dot indicates the context of the Docker daemon. So Docker daemon has to know where to find Dockerfile and where to find all the necessary components for the Dockerfile to really work on your image basically. So dot is very important. So it's a simple command: docker build -t, the name of the repository, the name of the image, and the tag, and you just enter. And what it will do, it will start locating the Docker file, which is that it has done. It will start downloading it, and this and that will do many things. It will also tell you what it has done. So it has copied target .jar to app.jar, and the image is now ready. How do you know whether the image is ready? You have to go and search for Docker images. When you do Docker images, you will get something like this here. This is what we exactly got just now created, and that's the reason I told you, right? I've already Dockerized this earlier, and now I have done it again, but this time I've given it a different name. So I'm saying Spring Ref App Demo 123 latest, and you can see 16 seconds ago it was created, but it is just still an image. Nothing is really happening. I can open Docker desktop basically to see is any images, any container is running. Right now there's no container. Now, once you create the container, it always makes sense to see whether, sorry, not the container. Once you create the image, it always makes sense to see whether the image actually can be spinned up, can be converted to a container. And that's what I'm going to do now next. So I will say Docker run. So remember, Docker build is for building the image, and Docker run is for running the image. So I'll say Docker run, and I will say ITT. They are different flags. So interactive, they're different flag detached modes, so different tags, and we'll talk about it later. It's not a single statement. It's more of a IE hyphen A, IE hyphen T hyphen D, and then I will say I will have to provide the port. So I will say port. I'll say 9096 9096. What I'm trying to say here is whatever traffic which will come to 906 has to be passed on to 906 inside the image, because in the image, if you see, I have this as exposed. Let's say in my local machine, I want that whenever I hit localhost, let's say 8083, the traffic from 8083 port in my local machine should go and route to this container and listen to 9096. So all the traffic from 8083 from my local should be sent to port 9096 of the container. So this is what it means. Always makes sense to make it same for at least when you are doing R&D to avoid any confusion. And at the end, you need to tell what image you want to run, right? So I want to run this image which I created, which is this one. So I'll go and create add statement like this. Also, you have to always pass the latest tag. Otherwise, it will automatically take the latest. Okay, and if I simply say run, okay, it has triggered it. Let's see if it is running. How do you check it? You can come here and see that there's a new app, new container running. You can also go ahead and run some commands. You can say docker ps. Docker ps gives you what are the container which are in running condition. If you see there is a new container which has been picked up. This is a new container, and it is routing all the ports. It's saying how it's doing it. So saying whatever is coming 000 simply means localhost. All that when you say localhost 9096, when you hit to 9096, it will pass it on to the 9096 of the container. Can validate it? Yes, we can. We can just simply run a command here. I will just open the Postman for you, because this was supposed to be a simple REST API, and I will simply say 9096, and I just simply say send, and it has returned me status as 200. Okay, that means my application is running. All right. Now what I'll do is I can stop the container directly from here, or I can just go here and click on stop, and it will also stop there. Because running the application is none of my concern at this moment, because I'm talking about CI, and CI you don't run anything, CI you create. So I'll go back to diagram again just for understanding. So I just explained what is source code, and how you Dockerize it is what I've explained. So how to create the image locally using a Docker file is what I have discussed so far. Now we are going to do something else, which is I was talking earlier that we are going to use this with a JIB plugin. Now, before I jump there, I also would like to show you how you push an image into the Docker Hub. Now, in order to do that, you need to really have an account in Docker Hub. Let me open the Docker Hub. Go here. So here you have to sign up, and it gives you some free access. And then you have to create a repository and all those things. I'm not going to show exactly how you do that. It's pretty simple textbook stuff. So I have, you can see I have this namespace SonarQube, my project name. Inside this, I have committed one file here. This is my application, the same application. But this time, this is my not application, this is my image, which I created 10 minutes ago. But this time, I have named it differently. I have named it as this. So now what I'm going to show is I have created the image. I have run the container. But container doesn't mean anything anyway. All I need is an image. So what I'll do is I'll try to publish this image. I'll try to publish this image to the Docker Hub. Okay. Now to do that, it's pretty simple. Again, few commands. But of course, as I said, you need to first have an access here. You need to create an image. Sorry, you have to create an account here with username and passwords. And then you have to say Docker login. When you say Docker login, it will try to locate your credentials. If it's already saved, there is a file, Docker config file, where it saves its credentials. If not, then it will ask you, and you have to enter your username and password. Now, once you do that, then it's again pretty simple statement. So you'll say Docker image, because you want to push an image. So you say Docker image push, and then of course the name of the image like this, and enter. And this will, and when you do this, this will start pushing the image, and eventually the image is going to be coming here. Let's see. And here it is. Just pushed by this command, which is Docker image push. Okay, now all this was manual, right? This was not CI. This is something which we are doing on my local machine, developing it, creating Dockerfile, and creating the image, building the image, and then running the container, and then pushing it to the Docker registry, which is also fine. Sometimes it's also required from a local build perspective. Developer of these APIs need to do this to understand how really their app would look like and all. But eventually, all this has to happen from a CI/CD pipeline, as simple as that. Now, CI/CD pipeline, as I said, this is not a reliable way of doing it, because for this to work, your machine on which your pipeline is running, the Jenkins agent has to have this dependency of having to have a Docker daemon, Docker installed there. If it's not the case, then it won't work. And as I said, JIB is something which is widely used across industry just to do this. And it's very simple. All you have to do is go to your POM file, and you don't have to, as I said, once you use this, you will not need Dockerfile. You can just go ahead and delete that. But I'm not going to delete it because it's for tutorial, so I'll just let it remain here. So I'll go to POM file, and the command and the plugin which I commented, let me uncomment them. All right, so I've uncommented them. Let me just tell you what this is. So it's simple Maven. If you're aware about Maven, it's pretty simple thing. You have a plugin. It's given to you by Google Cloud Tools, JIB Maven plugin, and here you define. So it's also it looks very similar to what you did here, right? So it needs an image. You see, you needed an image here, OpenJDK 11. The same thing you need to have provide here. From which image you want to, because for Docker to work, you need to give a base image. Which has something. So I'm saying this, and then I'm saying then you have to, from this image, you have to create this. This is where I have to tell that which repository, which image, what name of the image, what tag, what project name, and where I have to publish this. So this is complete path of where I want to really put this. And this here in this case, I put as Spring reference type, which is actually also name, which is this one. Then here I have given some JVM settings, and then the port. as 9096 and allow insecure ST some flags here for this to work properly. One thing is missing here, which you can notice that there is no credentials available, right? So, okay, by the way, when it will actually run is also has to mention here. So I'm saying when the phase is installed. So when the Maven clean in the Maven default lifecycle, there is a multiple phases. So at the install phase of the Maven, it will actually trigger itself. The plugin will itself trigger itself with the goal as build, and then that's when the image is actually being created. Now, as I said, what is missing here is the credentials, right? Because if you see when we are doing it locally, credentials are also not here, which is fine. But when we are trying to publish it, we gave the credentials. You didn't see me giving it because I gave it earlier. I had to write Docker login, and then login was succeeded, and only that's when I was able to push it. But here, when you are using JIB, if it is running, let's say in a Jenkins, there's no credentials there, and your credentials also is something you cannot really put here. I mean, you can put it, but it's not advisable. So different ways of doing it. So I'll go through a very simple one is that this plugin expects if you are sending, if it requires credentials, username and password, you can actually send a command line argument from here. So you can simply say -d when you create maven clean install, you say maven clean install -d jib, then username and then the password. It will know how to connect to that. Um, Connect to that specific repository. So when I run it from local in my Docker daemon local, the username password is still there. So when I run this command from local, that means if I simply say maven clean install, and for argument's sake, I will just give something here. I'll say kt or something. When I say maven clean install, what it will do is it will, of course, first build my API. And once the API is built, it will try to publish it in the same step. Let's see if it does that. In this case, it will not ask me any password, because if you see, it is already authenticated. I just saw this somewhere saying I have authenticated it, because from the Docker daemon, it went ahead. Okay, never mind. It has authenticated it because in my Docker daemon, the username and password in Docker config file, my username and password is there. So it has picked it from there because this command is running on my local. And you can see the effect here. You see, it has pushed Spring Riff app AKT. I can go here, or rather anyone can go here. Even you can go here, copy this command, and the same application which I created actually will just go and run in your machine. And that's the advantage of why we use containers, so that works on my machine syndrome is no longer there. Because if it's running in a container, it will run same across all machines, irrespective of what configuration you might have. All right, now I will try to do the same thing, because still it's not a CI, right? Because it's happening in my machine. Now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and create a Jenkins pipeline for this. And the Jenkins pipeline is something which we try to run. And while we run it, it should actually do the same thing. Now I will go ahead and delete this so that I don't change the context of what we really are doing. And let me commit the code. So I have added some code here. Let me commit it. This has no impact on what I'm going to show. It just I was taking some time to, because otherwise I will forget later. I'll just do a commit and push. Now this is a repository present here. This is my repository. It is here. Now I have to configure this to run with my Jenkins, and I have a Jenkins instance already with me, which is this one. This is my personal Jenkins instance, and I will use this for creation of this pipeline. Now I can go and start from new item. Okay, I have to log in first. Let me log in. I can go and start creating my items here from pipeline, this and that, but rather usually it's supposed to be pipeline. But what I'll do is I already have a pipeline created. So I'll say Spring reference, reference app. And here I will say I want to copy it from product API because I already had that earlier. So it will just copy it from there. Otherwise, it's pretty simple. You will see something like this here. I don't want this, so I will just remove this. Even I don't want it, I will remove this. And here, the most important setting, which is so you can leave everything as it is. The most important one is this one, which is you have to say pipeline script from SCM. I mean, you can remove this and do a pipeline script directly here, which is not a good way to do it. So it's better you do it from pipeline. This is also something which is runs from a simple file, similar to Dockerfile for Jenkins to define the configuration, define the pipeline in a as a code basically. So what I'll do simply is to create. I'll show you that. So I'll just go and add a Jenkins file. I'll just copy paste so that I don't have to write it. Okay. So I'll say Jenkins file, and here there are multiple things. I don't want all, so I will simply say I don't want this. I'll remove this deploy one. Sonar. Okay, let me just comment it out for the moment. Docker image, just nothing much here. Only simple command I want to run here. So I want to say build and create, or simple build and create and push image. So everything happening in the same step. And as I said, Maven clean install does everything, right? So Maven clean install will actually do will go ahead and actually execute the whole plugin, whole app, and it also will generate, because inside this install I have something called as Google JIB, which also can actually spin up the image, or not the spin up, create the image and push it. Now this is what I was explaining earlier, because when I run this on Jenkins agent, there will not be any credentials installed there. I mean, I do have it, but mostly it will not be, there will not be any what do you call it, credentials. Now what we do for this is something which I was explaining earlier. We will copy this, and we will actually go ahead and enter this, something like this here. And here I will enter my username and password, which of course I will not do while I record. So better I'll pause it for a moment and save it. By the way, there are different ways of handling it. Usually it is not supposed to be put here. And this is where you're supposed to be using the Jenkins credentials manager. I think I do have that set up as well. Let me just quickly check. And I think we do have, it's not really a good way of directly putting it here. So what I'll do is something new. I'll show you that. So if I go to dashboard and I go to my manage Jenkins, I think I already have my credentials stored in a secret store in Jenkins. That is this one, Docker Hub. Now it has my username and password to access Docker Hub. And what I'll do is I'll go back again to dashboard, and I'll go to Spring Reference App, and I'll go to Configure, and here okay, where did it go? Okay, go here, click here. Okay, now I want is a Jenkins file, and my Jenkins file is here, but I'll go and click on a pipeline syntax because I want to use my credentials manager. I'll go here, and this is a place where if you're not very sure about what kind of syntaxes I can give for Jenkins, this is where you come and you can generate the syntax for you. You select here with credentials. Here you say I want to have username and password as separated, not joined. For username, I want to say U. For password, I want to say P. And here I want to say Docker Hub. And I click on generate pipeline script, and that's it. So I just copy it, and I will, inside my stage steps, I will put this, and I will copy like this. And here I can simply say as U, and here I can simply say as P. So what really it will do is it will look for, when it will run, it will replace this u from the password, the username, as this, and password as this. So it will automatically retain, this is how you basically safe keep your confidential information. You don't not supposed to be putting any username and passwords. If you need to do because you do need to have username and password credentials information here and there, and always make use of Jenkins secret store. Okay, I'll go back. I mean, more on this later. How you really create this credential is not that complicated, but this is how you generate the block for you to use inside the Jenkins file. Okay, that's it. And then I will go and I will say committing, or rather adding Jenkins file for image creation. I mean, it's for all the things, but for now, I'm just creating it for image creation phase, and that's it. So I'll say commit and push, and I will push it. So it's pushed now, and next what I'll do is I'll go back. Oops, sorry, I'll go back here, and here it's pretty simple that I have a Jenkins file. It's on Jenkins file path. So I'm simply saying, okay, I have to change the URL. This is my repository. It has a Jenkins file present here. So I'll skip the repository URL. This, my GitHub username password is already there, so I'm using this as a credentials. Here again using Jenkins credentials, my branch is master, and inside that I have a script called as Jenkins file, which I just added. So this is my Jenkins file, and what Jenkins will do is it will check out this repository from GitHub and start running the Jenkins file there. Okay, now I will simply save this and run this build now. Let's see what happens. In my experience, this never works in the first attempt. Something must have been there must be a miss somewhere. Let's see. So it's important that this fails so that I could show you how to debug the problems when you face problems in Jenkins pipeline. Let's see. You can see the progress. So you can go inside this and you can see the console output, and it will tell you what's really is happening. So it shows a lot of this stuff, progress, and there's a way to disable this. Otherwise, it will clutter the whole log. Now let me show you how you do that, or rather let it finish. Right, so let me see where we are. Is it failed? It is not failed. It succeeded. So it has taken. Okay, so it has. So I was wrong in the in my first attempt. It was able to do it. Let's see in the Docker Hub. If I go into Docker Hub, uh, let's see if it has recently published anything. Oops. Let me go to my repositories. It is saying it has done it 3 minutes ago. Let me run it again. Let's see. So if I go back, and this time I would try to disable something because that's really very, it will make the things clutter. The reason is, I mean, the simple trick to disable this progress before each download, I will simply go here and write something called as -b. That means I want to do this in a batch mode, and that's it. That will do the trick. I will publish it again. Jenkins, oops, Jenkins file change May 1 batch mode, something like this. Commit and push, and this should do the trick. And this time again, I will go ahead and run the app again. Okay, so my build is anyway pass, right? So I'll go and build now again. And this time I'll show you the log as well. Important stuff in the log. Let me go to console output. So this time it's good that it doesn't show you the progress and all, it only showing me what's important. Okay, cool. So let's see. A secret was passed to SH. It is saying what it ran. So you see, it is running this command fn clean install. GIB to auth is 33743, and the password has hidden. That's the genius of Jenkins. It doesn't show you the log in the confidential thing in the log. And because of this reason, I use this with credentials so that I don't have to pass my credentials anywhere else. I just could save it in credentials manager in Jenkins and pick it from there. And tests and Spring and success. And yes, if I go back here, so it did work in my first attempt itself. Yes, a few seconds ago, it has published this. Right, so this is how you do it. So what we have done today is Spring Boot application. I gave you overview, I containerized it, showed you how to do it with Dockerfile, and showed you how to do it in GIB using GIB plugin on local. I showed you how to push it in the repository, in the registry from local as well as from the CI. I showed you how to design a CI pipeline via Jenkins. I mean, not completely, but give you some idea about it, because my focus was anyway was not to show you entire CI/CD pipeline, but just one phase of it. So this just one phase is what I've showed at the moment. I can also show you one more phase perhaps for the Sonar, which is actually also one of the agenda for today's video. So Sonar Analysis is also something I can try to give a glimpse. Let's see how much time it takes. So if I go back here to the Sonar Analysis, let me go to my Jenkins file. This is Sonar Analysis stage would look like. Now all you have to do is to do something like this. Okay, but this will just not quickly work. Okay, why? Because for Sonar to work, I need to register in my Sonar my project, right? And let's do that. So I will just go here and open my Sonar cloud. Sorry, Sonar here. Okay, and then I'll click on login, and I'll use my GitHub credentials to log in. I mean, you have to, of course, sign up before you actually make use of this as well. And once you do that, you have to go and see, because it shows you how many APIs you have. And so I was analyzing this project called as products API, where it's showing me different stuff, bugs, and code smells. So it's currently showing me for my pull request and all. But my main branch, if I go to my main branch, it shows me what do I have here. Okay, so I have some code smells. Somehow it's not showing how much coverage I have, because I think I have not run my. I do have very high percentage of code coverage. I have a lot of unit tests there in this products API. But anyway, this session is not about products API or code coverage for that matter. It's just what kind of things you can monitor from your Sonar. So let's just configure our new project there. So if I go to my projects, I have these many projects available there, but I have to go and add a new one. So I'll say analyze new project. Come on. Okay, and here I will choose the organization as, let me use this one. Okay, see the project. Let me see, imported. Let me check what's wrong here. It's supposed to be showing all the repositories which I have there. Wait. I think I have to give it full right. So maybe I'll go here. Okay, configure. So basically I need to give the permission to all my repositories, right? Because for Sonar to access my GitHub repository, which is actually present here, right? I need to give Sonar access so that it could read this repository. because it's a static code analysis, right? And static code analysis require you to have uh, access to that specific repository. Only then it will be able to read the static code, the code which is source code which is present there. Now I'll go here. I have given permission to only selected repositories. Now let me give to Spring reference app as well this access, this one, and I will say save. So now it was able to do, I guess. Let me again open it, analyze new project, and here I will say this is my organization, and now I'm getting this here, and I'll say setup. One of it will be created as a public project on Sonar Cloud. Okay, setup. And now I'm here and it will try to analyze. So sometimes for simple projects, it is able to do it on its own. But sometimes if it's a complicated project like Spring Boot is a complicated project, at least for Sonar, it will try to ask you uh, to do you use an analysis method. So different CI support it provides. So GitHub Actions again has a CI mechanism. It's saying if you are using GitHub Actions, do that. If you want to do it in a different way, do it different way. So I'm actually going ahead and using doing the manual thing. I have a Maven thing. So I click on, my project is based on Maven, so I'll say Maven. And here I have to provide some environment variables like Sonar token and this and that. Let me configure that. So I have to go, so it's exactly telling me what needs to be done. I don't have to reinvent anything. It's telling me you have to go to a POM file, you have to copy this. Okay, I said, okay, I'll go ahead and copy this. So I'll go back to my reference app, to my project, pom.xml file, and I will copy this. Oops, I only have to copy this much, which is this. All right, then saying when you run the command, you have to run something like this. So you have to say Maven verify or Sonar source scanner, Maven Sonar plugin, Sonar project key as this, etc. etc. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to copy this as well, and I will go to my, because it's my Jenkins file which is running the command, isn't it? So I will just simply say my steps and I will run this. So instead of running anything else, I will rather run it like this. I'll say this, this, and I will say sh, and I will say -b here as well. So it's exactly the same. This time it's just project key has been changed. So instead of this project key, I am using this project key, which is actually my actual project. And this project key is created in Sonar as a project for me. And this is how Sonar knows where to store the information about this project, which I'm going to run. Let me just remove this from here. And I think it's as simple as that. Let me see if there's anything else I'm missing. Well, I think that's it. That's it. That's all I have to do. Now let's see what happens. So now I have uncommented this stage. So once or rather I'm supposed to be running it before the image is being created. That's actually makes sense, isn't it? So I will just run the Sonar first. And then I will, however, I have not put any conditions here. For example, if this fails, some quality check fails here, it's ideally in a typical CI, this should not happen. But I'm not enforcing it at the moment. I am, because it's just a tutorial, isn't it? Now I will just go and publish here saying I have added a Jenkins file, modified Jenkins file, modified with Sonar implementation. Simply commit and push. Okay, now I will have to go back to my pipeline here, and I will go back, and now I will re-trigger it. So I will just say build now. By the way, I could have also used webhook so that as soon as something gets merged, something gets added in the master branch, the pipeline will automatically will get triggered. That's the thing which we really will be implementing eventually as a part of this whole project. But for now, we are manually triggering it. So my first phase was Sonar, so it is running my first phase Sonar, so it is running Sonar now. Let's see what it runs next. And of course, next it will run build, create, and push image, but the Sonar will have the effect on this board. Let's see if anything here yet. My projects, let me see it from my projects. Nothing has come here yet. Still showing configuration. Let's see. Configure analysis, extra step required. I did all that. I think I may have missed something. Let's see. I do have a Sonar token available there. Let me just cross check again. Still nothing yet. Okay, let me go and see what happened to the pipeline. Oh, it all failed. Let's see the reason for failure, which that would give us what exactly is the cause. Failed to execute. You're not authorized to run. Okay. I think I missed something. So here, I think I missed these two steps. I thought it's already there, but it wasn't actually. So of course, we need to authenticate. Um, uh, Authenticate our Jenkins agent. When it runs, it has to reach to Sonar Cloud. If it's not able to reach Sonar Cloud using this authentication token, it will not be able to do. Now, this token is something which I have to set. So what I'll do is I will use the pipeline here. I will go and use with environment, and here I will just copy paste it with the Sonar token stuff. Sonar token as this, and I will generate it. Now, again, this is not a good way of doing it. By the way, this is a really bad way because I have my token exposed, which I'm going to disable, of course, out of the video because it's already been recorded. But it's not really good way of doing it. So this also was supposed to be in the Jenkins credential manager. Never mind. I'll go back to my Jenkins file, and here I will do as environment. So I don't have to set it or pass it somewhere. I just want to set an environment variable. That is what has been asked me. That is what I was supposed to be doing. That is what it is asking me to do. So in the step, I'm simply saying I want to run this with environment as this, and I will commit this again. Let's see. This time it works. Okay, successful. Now let's run it. Let's see if I would be able to show this. I think it's success this time. So I'll go here and see if it is successful. I think yes, it is. And it is showing me analysis successful. I can go and open the link. Okay, it opened then in there, which is not right. But anyway, let me go back to here and I will refresh it from here. If I see projects again, right, so it is telling me everything. It's saying 0 bugs, 0 vulnerabilities, hotspot reviewed, and there are 7 code smells it found, 0 coverage, some percentage of duplication or something. Let's see the details. So it is saying there are 7 findings. Uh, 7 code smells it found, some mistakes in the code, saying remove this commented code, define and throw eradicated. So these are all code smells which it has defined to really understand or mark your coding and mark your quality of the code which you have written. And this is how it does it. And we can actually analyze this further. So later on, when we have more sessions on this, I'm going to show you how you actually do this, how you fix them basically, or not make these mistakes in the first place. So code smells is something which we may discuss as well later. All right, so I think we have discussed in this video. We have talked about covered all the stuff here. It took some time to do this because we are doing this and we're hitting some roadblocks while we do it, while we were doing it, and I think we have surpassed them, and that's good. Okay, thank you everyone. And the next videos, I'm going to talk about more from CD perspective. So if you go here, the original diagram which we had for the CD flow, we discussed the CI flow, which is this one. But there's a lot of things which is missing here. So we have this unit test execution, integration test execution, all this was missing. First and foremost, we need to design our CI flow in a way it is supposed to be. And then we will jump on to developing our CD flow, where we start pulling the images and deploying it to different environments, and then run our tests and run our performance tests and this and that. And that requires, that's a different beast in its own right, and we will start doing it later. But for now, this is what we have. This is something which we need to work on first. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.